the 1920s, the mines burnt anything that would burn in a smelter. My father said within a 50 miles radius of Broken Hill, anything they could get a wagon alongside, they took it and burnt. So we had a station called Glen Idle, IDOL, 60-odd thousand acres, without a tree on 40,000 acres of it. And so we had an underground room on the station where at 11 o'clock in the morning, we were sent down there because it looked like the weather was going to put on a turn. And it did, a big sandstorm. When I came outside, it was a desert. There wasn't a single piece of plant left. My father used to go out after these major storms. There'd be sheep buried in sand. And I mean, as it breathed in, the fines went down the nose like water down a bathtub. Oh, I'll never ever forget it. And I'm thinking, after having nearly died myself, here's this poor sheep definitely going to die and can't do a thing about it. My father would shoot them. And that said to me, this is ridiculous. How could we possibly have the technical abilities we have and this happens? So when I realised the great potential that this old landscape could reveal, I thought it would be easy. And here we are, 84 years old, still saying, what the devil are we doing? Why do we, with the magic technology we've got, with the amazing communications that are available, are we still wondering what to do next?
Natural sequence farming, the way I like to refer to it, natural is understanding nature. Sequence is the sequence of events post a rain event. The rain comes, the plants grow, they start this process, and that's the sequence. And the farming is overlaying the production system over the top of that natural sequence. Typically, in any of our farming enterprises, we go onto a landscape and we just overlay the farming component without actually understanding how the landscape functioned in the first place. Where what we're looking at is, let's understand how the landscape functions, get the function, then overlay the appropriate production system over that landscape. My name's Stuart Andrews from Tarwyn Park Training, and we're at Forage Farms at Kybong in Queensland. The name Tarwyn Park Training originated from the property Tarwyn Park where I grew up, and what we wanted to do is we wanted to be able to start a training course in natural sequence farming, and it was developed primarily at Tarwyn Park by my dad, Peter Andrews. And so to highlight that, we thought the name Tarwyn Park Training would be fitting. Mind you, I guess at the time we thought that we would probably be running Tarwyn Park Training at Tarwyn Park all the time, but anyway, you never know what life's going to bring, and as it turned out that we seem to be travelling everywhere with Tarwyn Park Training now. Growing up at Tarwyn Park under the stick, I will call it, of Peter Andrews was interesting. It wasn't necessarily easy, I would have to say, but give PA, I like to call Peter Andrews PA, give him his due, because as an older person today, I can look back and say, well, he was probably still learning at the same time as he was trying to teach me, which is difficult. When you're still learning to be able to teach somebody else, it can be a little bit frustrating. It was not easy. It was quite challenging actually, because every day changed. Every minute changed. You thought you had a goal, you thought you had goalposts you were working towards, and all of a sudden they changed. And it's really funny because today that's exactly what I do, same sort of thing, because the landscape is always changing. Therefore, you need to be always changing. You can't set the one goal and say, right, that's it, I'm just going to do that, because it might change. And so you've got to be prepared to change with it. Back then, I found it really difficult, really challenging, pretty upsetting. But today, I have a different view on that. But I guess that's what you do as you get older, I suppose. You start to look at things a little bit differently. Would I change anything? I don't think so. I don't think so, because through that period of time, as difficult as it was, it made me the person that I am today. And had I have not gone through that, I probably wouldn't have had the strength to do what we've done ourselves, as myself, Megan, Hamish and Lachlan, as a family. It stood us in pretty good stead. So although we had a challenging time for maybe the first 20 years or so, I think it was okay.
Stuart's understanding, of course, has been a paradigm shift, because, you know, he moved into Mylong at 5 years old, and everyone said, your old man's mad. Of course, why would you try to do this? You start a pump and put in a sprinkler. And of course, he put up with that. And then he got to me and said, look, he said, I think you should take over. I don't think you know what you're doing. And then I let him take over, and then he suddenly realised I probably did know what I was doing. But anyway, he's now done a great job, probably better at teaching people than me, because I get irritated by them. And so if you'd seen this so clearly, and then you talk to people who have got no idea what you're looking at or been looking at, and they've been walking on, it's a frustrating piece to try and deal with. I find it anyway, very frustrating. And it's a frustration to me that we've got people in charge who this most simple common sense and the most amazing technology that we have not even taken the trouble to come and ask me, was there something different about what I've been doing?
So when we're at our course, I'm introducing Peter Andrews, or PA. I introduce him as PA, and I talk about an African boxthorn. And if anyone knows anything about an African boxthorn, it's got a really, really big prickle on it. And so PA is one of those quite prickly plants that's a pioneer. That plant is there to do a job that most others can't or won't do. And so it has these prickles. And as a result, sometimes people get pricked. And occasionally I was that person. But the thing is, like plants, like people, you would hope that the next person or the next plant that comes along will have a slightly less of a prickle. And so the way I explain it is that PA is the African boxthorn with the big prickle, and I'm a blackberry with a smaller prickle. Still a bit prickly, but not quite as prickly as the African boxthorn. The 5 pillars of natural sequence farming are: slow the flow, let all plants grow, be careful where the animals go, filtration is a must-know, and return to the top to recycle the lot. All of these 5 pillars are really key because they interlock one another. So slow the flow is about how are we managing the water in our landscape, and the water is our vehicle, how I like to refer to it as the taxi. And it's the taxi for moving things around the farm. And gravity is the fuel that drives the taxi. And then that rolls into the plants, because the plants are key in managing our fertility, whether our fertility is moving off of the landscape or whether we can hold it on there. Because the vehicle, the taxi, being driven by the fuel gravity, plants are the major managers of both of those elements. But if we've got a landscape that's not in a good condition, we have to get it to the point where we've got the plants in there to be able to do that. And then be careful where the animals go. Well, we can go in and we can help manage how the water moves, but we have to be careful that our animals don't undo the work that we've done to get that functioning. So understanding the areas that are most sensitive to the animals is really, really critical. If we can get that right, then the system's got a chance of building. And then we want to be able to filter. We want areas where we can filter the losses, because there will be losses, maybe completely out of our ability to prevent it. And so we want something in place where if anything starts moving, we can capture that and filter it, and so the only part that leaves is just the water and not the fertility. And then the fertility that we've now captured in these areas, we want to work out how could we harvest the plant material that grows in that fertility, transfer those plants back to the top, and we've now got a system where we're losing nothing. And so the easiest way in a farming system to make money is to stop losing. If you can prevent your landscape from losing, then you're going forward. Our mission to Rehydrate Australia started way back when the ABC ran the Australian story covering the works that PA had been doing at Tarwyn Park. And that led on to his book, Back from the Brink, which really enthused millions of people across the country and probably throughout the world to want to look at how they can rehydrate their landscapes also. So now we're going on a road trip to visit some of these champions to see how they are installing NSF onto their properties. Our first stop on the NSF road trip is outback Queensland, Charleville, Boothulla Station with Will and Sasha Treloar. Will and Sasha are using contour banks to reinstate the function on dried, hard clay pans, returning them back to being functional floodplains as they would have once been.
I think we're pretty lucky to live where we live. It's a great place to bring up kids. It's very unique landscape, the mulga lands, but in hard mulga country, up to 90% of rainfall can run off. So when you think about it, if we're at 380 odd mils a year, if 90% of that is running off, you're trying to make a living off 38 mils a year, which isn't very much. So we thought perhaps we could do something a little differently.
We live on Boothulla Station, a cattle property in southwest Queensland, west of Charleville. We've got the Pyro River runs through us. So the clay pans would have once been floodplains, they would have been the sweetest feed. So they've been the areas that have been overstocked and degraded. But we've also seen them as the cheapest areas to rehabilitate. They're open, so it's only really needing a grader to come in and do that work. We don't need any bigger earth moving gear to come in and assist. So we've seen that as best bang for buck with areas to get functioning properly. But we do have whole property perspective we would like to do work on.
For me, like when I first turned up here and I looked at these clay pans, then I could think,
Big clay pans.
yeah, I didn't think that anything could really grow on them. And just to see some kind of response is really encouraging, and putting the contours in and implementing this natural sequence farming, I think it's been really interesting to watch the landscape change.
We've seen some great succession of plants. Once we got that rain, we hit the pioneer species, the burrs, the roly-polies and all that stuff you'd expect to see, but then we jumped through succession really quickly. The grasses came and actually some wildlife, some little birds and tadpoles and things you'd see in the contour channels. It was...
Yeah, once even the buggy got bogged.
We got bogged, didn't
Yeah,
we?
we did
We were
get
out
bogged.
checking after a storm and Dad was too busy looking at the banks and getting excited and wasn't looking in front. And
Yeah, next second he gets bogged and
We had to walk home.
yeah, we had to walk home, and Mum walked home and she got a vehicle and she got some sway water. Yep.
I think the biggest thing is observation. Look at your country, look at your plants, what are they actually trying to tell you? And then when you start to fiddle with things, what's working, what's not working, how can we change it or whatever, you know, it's just so much observation and being aware of your country. The other thing that often will happen is people will see some really great work, oh, but it's not in my landscape, it won't work with us. That is something that we do hope to encourage other people to look at things a little differently, and maybe we can make things better.
it would be nice to think that what we've learnt, like for these guys, it become second nature, like the powers of observation and seeing the landscape, yeah, be game changing.
We're at Marloo Rylestone. This is a property we purchased back in 2015, and the reason we purchased this property was because it was steep, it was clay, and it was also very badly degraded. And so we said, righto, what do we need to do to start to regenerate this piece of landscape? So when I first go out to a property and I look to read the landscape, the first thing I look for are what plants are in that landscape. The key for me is how much diversity is there. If I go out to a landscape and it's all grass, it may look to be a beautiful landscape, but it may be actually hiding something that's underneath not functioning very well. What I'm looking for is how much diversity have we got there? How much green surface area have we got? Have we just got one layer of plants, or have we got multiple layers of plants at different heights? That's the first thing I look for. Then I look for, okay, so what's happening with the water? When it rains, is the rainfall staying on this piece of land, or is it running off? If it's running off, why? That could lead back to the first component where we don't have enough biodiversity. What were the patterns of water flow that existed prior to man going onto that landscape? Are they still working? If they're not, we look at, okay, so how do we reintroduce those patterns of water movement in that landscape? There, I guess, the key things. I look for what we call steps. We look for the steps in the landscape, which are the places where water once slowed. So there'll be areas where water flows faster and areas where water flows slower. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that those steps are still there and still functioning. A lot of the time they're not functioning. So we look at, okay, what do we need to do to reintroduce that function? And what you're looking for is if you have a slope coming down, the slope slightly eases up. It's not flat, but it eases up a slight amount and then falls away again. That's an indicator that there's a step there. So leading on from the steps, you'll find that there are flow lines that move out in a pattern where they move out like this, where water moves out from a point and then comes back together again. What's really important, if you can imagine you've got water moving, the water is carrying some sediment, and the sediment's moving along in the water, and then all of a sudden something happens. The water slows and the sediment starts to drop and it starts to build. And what happens is that the water can't go over the sediment, so it starts to go out round it, each side. And as it does that, it's creating the pattern. And that's the building of a floodplain. So these are the patterns that grow a floodplain. And it doesn't matter where you are, whether the floodplain's thousands of acres or a couple of square metres. Exactly the same process takes place and exactly the same patterns are there. So you're looking at those patterns to understand where they are, and then it starts to tell you what needs to happen to help get that working again.
Australia's vast system of watersheds, with waterways, wetlands and floodplains, act like massive sponges that recharge after a rain event, soaking up and gently releasing fresh water, creating chains of ponds everywhere across the landscape. These ponds are built gradually over time from simple debris like rocks and logs. They then get plugged up by reeds and mud and woven together by plants and trees that are feeding off the sediment. Water arrives from upstream and fills each pond like a bathtub. So as each bathtub fills, the water gets pushed out around the edges. This water creates flow lines that follow a pattern where water moves away from the pond, curves around the floodplain, floating debris and sediment out to the edges, forming level deposition banks, and then come back together again and spills into the next pond. This pattern repeats again and again. This is nature's way of building ponds, leaky weirs and contour banks. And these patterns have long been recognised by the Aboriginal people in their paintings. They can observe and understand the same topographic patterns over a very long period of time. We can see them as well, but what we're looking at today are patterns that are quite old and may not necessarily be functioning because the system's degraded to the point where the wetlands have drained and water rarely flows in these old patterns. That's where we can step in and play our role as stewards in Rehydrating Australia.
we've just completed a week's advanced course in Tussock Valley at Marloo to work out what could be done. When we're reading the landscape here in Tussock Valley, we can see that we've got a number of different plants in here which are already trying to start to help build this system. But we can see that the landscape is struggling to manage water, so our landscape is quite dehydrated. And over time, it's degrading, it's gradually getting worse, and it's asking for some assistance to help it build. The first thing to do when reading the landscape is getting an aerial topographic map of the area, in this case, Tussock Valley. So we're looking at the contours and we're seeing what the contours are telling us about that piece of land. We can make a rough plan with that, but we can't just rely on the aerial topographic map. We need to get on the ground to see exactly what is going on. We're looking for what plants are there. Where are their steps? What are the old water flow patterns? What are the issues? Is there erosion? Is there salinity? And how is the water leaving that landscape now? From there, we can formulate a plan as to how we are going to rehydrate the landscape. Some of the NSF implementations our landscape practitioners have come up with for Tussock Valley are gully ponds, earthen gully ponds. Some of those linked with contours, out with spillways on the ridges and with hilltop ponds. They've also built V-notch weirs out of logs and rocks, and finishing off at the bottom of the system with a stock crossing with a pipe through it. So we come in, we build the structures, and the plants take over and they grow the system, which means as things change over time, the plants can change to suit that. It becomes a living system that manages itself.
I'm Hamish Andrews from Tarwyn Park Training. Contour banks play an important role in Rehydrating Australia because they offer the opportunity for us to slow down and promote infiltration of water that would normally run off. And by implementing things like contour banks, we can now start a process that was once managed by plants, and in the long run they offer the opportunity for plants to take over that role once more, creating a long-term solution. For me, the top 5 things when installing a contour bank that we've got to always think about is firstly, building on a step in the landscape, a place where the gradient naturally flattens because of things like over a long period of time, plants managing water, allowing sediment to drop and building up that area to be slightly flatter than the area around it. Once we've picked out that site, we want to think about where we're going to take the water to. So we construct our level contour on a line running out to our ridge lines because these areas are generally drier. So at those points on our ridge lines, we're going to place what we call a spillway, which is an area where there's no bank to allow water to be released. And then between that area, we want to always build our contour banks level because we want to handle what we call an unlimited capacity of water, in which case we're designing for the biggest of events, whether we know they're coming or not. And then finally, we want to make sure that the contours are designed in a way that allow plants to take over in the long run, because we're not going to be here forever, so we need to work alongside nature and develop a system that it can take over in the long run, which plants is the ultimate solution to that.
My name's Nikki. I came from Cairns, but I work in the Northern Territory. I came to Tarwyn Park Training today because I've been reading about natural sequence farming and regenerative agriculture for quite a few years now, and so much of what the Andrews family talks about in terms of rehydrating the landscape I've seen in so many different places in Australia, and now that I can see it, I just want to be a part of rehydrating the landscape moving forward, even if it's just on a very small scale and very low contours. I think that would make me feel quite proud.
Congratulations to all of our graduates of the course who are now going home and starting to build some of these, seeing changes in the hydrology of their landscape, seeing them become more hydrated, seeing changes in plant succession as a result of having water and fertility in areas that they weren't normally seeing, and starting to manage large volumes of water that they can use as a productive source, as well as a more functioning and healthy ecosystem that they weren't able to do before.
We're heading to Cona Creek, Springsure, Queensland, to Ra and Tina's property, where they have a large, expansive operation, and they're showing that scale doesn't matter. And just getting started is what's important when it comes to rehydrating your landscape.
Cona Creek's 46,000 acres, but it's not about the scale, it's about the project you're working on that day. It's breaking the problem down into small bits, solving that problem, and then moving on to the next one.
Yeah, and then also the patterns are all the same. It doesn't matter how big, small the place is. You're looking for the same patterns everywhere in Australia. Whether you're a high rainfall or a low rainfall, it's the same patterns, just a different landscape.
We're Ra and Tina Briggs, Cona Creek, west of Springsure. We are fortunate that we've got these watersheds. It's important to have a whole of system approach to it because it all fits together, you know.
And it's really important that you have a plan. So our plan was we started at the top, but everything that you do has a flow-on effect, and we are seeing that flow-on effect. We do want to restore the wetland that's in the bottom, and Ra's put in quite a few check banks. We've slowed that flow, the water backs up, there's been a level of deposition and biodiversity, growth, like the birds and the trees and the plants, and underneath the trees it's all beautiful and green and it's cooler.
Yeah, that's right. And little projects like a food foresty type situation or a wetland, they don't take up much room. You know, we're talking tenths of a % of area, so why not? You know, why not do something that's a bit of fun and a learning experience as well? And I say the words give something back, but we're gaining much more than we're giving.
So by doing this, that's our way to make sure that every acre does count. So when it comes to reading the landscape, for us, in the beginning, Ra had done heaps of research into ways of making the land better, and that's when he came across natural sequence farming. When we got back from Tarwyn Park Training, as we drove in, we were looking at the landscape with very different eyes from when we left, but still unsure of where to start, and that's when your analysis paralysis sets in, but that's not an excuse for not starting.
It's very easy to get lost in the detail, especially when you fire up a machine and start pushing dirt. So having a clear objective, whether you get it flying around or walking around or what, you need that start, middle, finish.
Make a decision and start.
Everyone loves the environment. I mean, nobody wants to live in a eroded landscape, drought-ravaged hellhole. We all want nice things, you know, and this has become our major drought reduction strategy. So I feel like I've discovered my life's work, improving this place, and
the results that we're seeing are amazing.
And driving big yellow machines is fun too.
We're heading over to Maleny, Springsure, Queensland, to Jason and Rachel Leitch's property, where they're using contours to slow the flow from ridge to reef. It's a great example of how landscape rehydration can be used in central Queensland.
The volumes of water that were leaving here was incredible. It was heartbreaking when we got a storm here. Ever since we've bought it, watching metres of water leave from ridge to reef. So it's probably our duty of care as much as anyone, that we can start slowing that water down and get it in a cleaner, better state when it reaches the reef. So I think it's a win-win for both of us to start it right up here. We're only early days, but you can already see where the work's been done. You can see the results very, very quickly, yeah.
I'm Jason Leitch, this is my wife Rachel. We are 50 kilometres west of Springsure on our property, Hillview Park in Maleny. When we looked after this portion for Rachel's parents, and we'd sit out on the lawn there up on this beautiful hill and look over the landscape, Rachel's dad would say, look at all those scalded patches out there and look at that selective grazing. He said, look at those bloody cows, he'd say, they're not going to move off that little sweet patch. They don't go up there and eat at the other end away from the water. And the thing that really hit home with me was that what we've done within our management of our landscapes is we've turned it into a very effective drainage system. And it's so effective how we've done it because that water's just gone off our landscape so quickly. So when I came home from the Tarwyn Park Training course, I just wanted to get straight into giving it a go. We've started up high in the landscape with a first bank to try and manage that water before it gets a great deal of volume. These banks will transfer the water sideways across the landscape, spilling out in a controlled manner across the higher points where it keeps moving down the landscape. And basically what happens as it goes through that process, it's being filtered. We obviously also try to manage our grazing to where there's impact and then rest. But these banks just fill in a piece of the puzzle that the plants were doing years ago.
I don't think anybody in this area or in Queensland could argue that moisture is our most important factor in any farming or agricultural business. And I can envisage or hope with this that we're drought-proofing ourselves. It's not a lot of work, it's not a lot of cost for the huge improvement and the quick improvement. It's not a long time before you start to see improvement. And my gosh, that's a big saving and a big help.
So moving forward, what we want to do here is just a continuation of going up high in the landscape, keeping that hydration bank going all the way around if we can to manage that water. Once again, not stop it, not hold it, not control it, just manage it, slow the flow, all the way down into the floodplain. So you're coming from managing the water from the ridge down into the floodplain and maximising your benefit out of that single rainfall, that single storm that we've often been living on lately. And if we can restore all those elements of ecosystem function, then we've got a property that hopefully is functioning like some sort of Garden of Eden. With our agricultural model the way we've got, small businesses getting smaller, big corporates are getting bigger. I can remember when I was a kid, you knew where your food was being grown, you had a relationship with the people that grew your food. And now I think a lot of the food we eat is just a filler. And then we go to a different network to get our medicine. It surely doesn't have to be like that. There's nothing in Mother Nature that does things in singularity. So we're trying to return our landscape to a diverse, healthy landscape.
So we're here at the stock crossing at the bottom of the Tussock Valley. The system here before this crossing went in was a mildly eroding gully system, and we needed to get the stock across from one side to the other, and we want to do that without damaging that flow line. So we built a stock crossing which manages the water, allowing the stock to cross over without causing harm to the bottom of the gully. So the features it has a pipe through underneath which allows the trickle flow or the slow flow to go through. If that flow increases too much more than the pipe can handle, then the water can move around the crossing on one side. It comes out around the crossing and then re-enters back on the downside into the water coming out of the pipe. If the flow keeps increasing in size, then water can go over the top of the whole crossing. But it's designed in such a way, it has a log sill on each side of the crossing. The log on the upside is 200 millimetres lower than the log on the downside, which means when the water starts to go over the top of the crossing, the water at the base or on the bed of the crossing isn't moving because it becomes a pond. and only the water that goes over the top of that is moving. Therefore, it doesn't have the ability to carry away the components making up the crossing, which in this case happens to be clay in this case. And so if we just ran water over the top of that, the water would carry away a component of that clay, therefore damaging the crossing. So that's the design and the function of this crossing. We're going to Grant Maundrell's farm, Blink Bonnie, at Little Hartley in New South Wales. And we're going to be looking at the prickly principle of all plants, where plant progression outperforms conventional approaches.
Natural sequence farming logically starts with water, slowing the flow, but then the next step is let all the plants grow. And yes, my passion is in plants and allowing those plants to come into a landscape and perform their functions to eventually manage the system for you. And the more that plants can manage the system, the better your system will be. Hi, I'm Grant Maundrell. We're here at my property in Little Hartley, New South Wales. We've spent 14 years here practicing natural sequence farming and going through all the 5 principles. Firstly, we're slowing the flow. We've done some earthworks, cutting contours. We've also very much demonstrated the principle of letting all the plants grow, and the biodiversity and productivity here has exponentially increased as a result. One of the most prominent pioneer or repair plants that's come up is blackberry on our property, and whilst it has a controversial reputation, we've observed that it has enormous benefits accelerating the succession that we're wanting to see, and we're finding that trees growing in blackberry are far outperforming the trees that are growing without blackberry around them. That's showing us that blackberries are the forest pioneers, and they're allowing that succession of treed systems to emerge far more successfully than without them. There was a beautiful moment I had a few years ago. I had just finished reading Charlie Massey's book, The Call of the Reed Warbler, when I'd come out to my paddock one early morning and I'd heard a new bird species that had turned up, and I thought, it's coming from the reeds, is it a reed warbler? And sure enough, it was. So we've had reed warblers migrating here in the summer months for the last few years, and their numbers are increasing as well. It was a really special moment for me because it's demonstrated that we're on the right track here and this landscape is moving forward in a positive way, as is demonstrated by the title of that book. So when people come to my property, you can easily see the benefits and the effects that natural sequence farming has on rehydrating and regenerating a landscape. This is a dynamic system. We're just at the beginning. Whilst we've been here 14 years, the future is only going to get better and better for this property.
What I enjoy the most about Tarwyn Park Training and educating people in natural sequence farming is really when I see people using the information that we've empowered them with, actually implementing it on their landscape, and the fact that they are seeing benefits, that their productivity is improved. That is the sweet spot. That is the bee's knees. You want people doing this stuff. You don't want them having to rely on somebody else all the time. So it's been quite amazing to see what gains people are making. I mean, just on some of the places not far from where we are right at the moment, I've seen productivity lifting between 25 to 50%, so more pasture growth. More pasture growth means potentially more stock per hectare. More stock per hectare obviously relates back to the bottom line. And this is all happening in a very short period of time. This is only within the first year or two. Remembering the system keeps building after that. And who knows how far and where it's going to go. There's so many benefits achieved by implementing natural sequence farming on your landscape. The biodiversity, just more plants. Most people, as soon as they start having a pond of water, they see tadpoles, and then the tadpoles turn into frogs. And this is life. This is life that wasn't there before. You know, some of the really exciting parts is where people talk about, you know, just on dusk, they go outside and all they hear are croaking frogs making a huge amount of noise. So that's life. They're all really positive things that people see. They see the land coming to life. So land that was dry before, where now they've got a little bit more water in there, they're now starting to see earthworms. Biology coming into the soil as a result of both the water and the biodiversity of plants. All of these things people find exciting. The animals too. You know, the animals start to have a bit of a hop in their step. They're obviously enjoying it. The quality of the feed out there is making them happier. And not to mention the fact that the landscape is cooler. And so that's a really big part. Those landscapes where they're getting more green surface area in there for longer means that that landscape is cooler. So that's another one of those really great things that people are seeing. There are absolutely no limitations on having NSF on half an acre or less into hundreds of thousands or millions of acres. It's applicable everywhere. It doesn't matter climate zones, soil type, size of landscapes. The reason it's applicable everywhere is because we're working from a micro to a macro scale. Whatever happens in a small site is replicable just in scale over a bigger site. That's how this landscape built. It built using the same patterns. It's really quite simple once you get to realise that water behaves the same way, plants behave the same way, everywhere. All it does is gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Next up on our NSF road trip, we're heading to Matt Moran's property at Rockley in New South Wales. Matt's showcasing high quality, nutrient dense food produced using natural sequence farming.
I think people in the city want to know where their food comes from, and they're exploring more about who's doing it and what they're doing. And natural sequence farming, regen farming, people identify it straight away as being of quality. And as much as I possibly can, we are demonstrating that in our restaurants by heroing that sort of product. Hi, I'm Matt Moran, restaurateur, chef and occasional farmer. Today we're at Moran Family Farm, which is on the central Tablelands, south of Bathurst, and I quite often get asked, why did I buy the Rockley pub? And for multiple reasons. I saw a pub that was probably dying, and to me the pub is the centre of the town. You lose the pub, I think you lose the town. So it was a labour of love, and it's just growing into something a lot more bigger. Paddock Bake means a lot to me. It started me thinking, more about the land and regen farming. And I suppose I have a bit of a philosophy that I'd like to leave this farm in a lot better condition to when I got on it. And it makes sense, so many things that we're doing on the farm to improve the farm, improve the water flow, to keep water on the farm. We're just seeing massive, massive benefits. So what we really started to do was all about how we can start doing natural sequence farming and redirecting that water. And I'll be brutally honest, I'm absolutely gobsmacked with what we've done. We've got so much water still on the farm, and you can just see it in the pastures already. It's made a massive difference. We actually have more stock on this farm than we've ever had it in 24 years. We're not only just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for all the habitat that probably used to be here. And to me, that means a lot. People come to the farm and go, oh my God, look at that dam, look at what you've done, look at the contours, look where you're redirecting the water. And you know what, we're at the base stage. This is something that we're going to work on every year, whether it's planting trees, more contours. To me, there's nothing better. It's just so beautiful to see. And to hear frogs all the time, I love it. There's no question, natural sequence farming can play a massive role in being clean food. and good food. It's happy cows, happy sheep, happy farmer, and happy person in the end that's going to eat it. To me, that's pretty pleasing.
My name's Adam Willson. I'm an organic research agronomist based here at Mount Tamborine in Queensland. I think the important thing about understanding contour farming is what impact it has on the food quality. So right across the world in many different environments, contour farming, like natural sequence farming, stops the small clay particles and the organic colloids from moving off the farm. So they stay in the soil so that the plant can absorb them, whether that's a pasture for livestock or whether it's vegetables or fruits for human consumption, it makes no difference. Those small particles retain all that nutrient and they stimulate the microbiome in those root zones, and then that all gets back up into the human. That's what inoculates our stomach. So if we don't get this right, our food quality is going to keep deteriorating year after year. And that's what we're seeing around the world. Whenever you lose that contour, wherever you lose that sediment, that organic fraction, the quality of that food just declines. So it's a good investment for the farmer.
So now we're heading to the Queensland Sunshine Coast, to Maleny, to Changing Habits Farm with Cyndi and Brogan O'Meara. The water that leaves Cyndi and Brogan's farm is crystal clear because of the introduction of natural sequence farming's ability to filter the water as it moves through the property.
I believe that if we don't know where our food is coming from, then we're not doing the best that we can do for our nutrition. And I've seen the studies of foods that are grown on soils like ours and the amount of nutrients and nutrition that's in them compared to a conventionally grown plant. And the same with animals, like a grass-fed animal as opposed to a grain-fed animal. And it is a mix of nutrition and farming. And that's what I love at the moment, is that people are becoming very interested in where they get their food from. I'm Cyndi O'Meara.
I'm Brogan O'Meara.
My son. And we're on the Changing Habits farm in Rhysville in southeast Queensland on the Sunshine Coast. We've got the Glasshouse Mountains to our south, and Maleny's back that way, and that way just keeps going. It's into the country.
Here on the Changing Habits farm, we have 60 acres. We're mainly running cattle, chickens, we do some tropics, education and functions, Airbnbs. We got a fair few things going, keeps me very, very busy.
I bought this land a decade ago because I'm a nutritionist and I didn't like what was happening in the food industry, not only in ultra-processed foods, but in what Food Standards Australia and New Zealand were allowing into Australia, what Australian Pesticide and Veterinary Medicine Authority was allowing into Australia. I could see the writing on the wall as far as all the chemicals that were being used and things that we weren't even being told about. So I thought, I need to grow my own food. But the other thing was I wanted to create a retreat, a place for people to come where it was clean and there were no chemicals. And I remember my husband saying at the time, going, why do you need 60 acres? Could we just do it with 5? And I went, no, I need 60 acres. I need this amount of acreage.
So we originally started, I had no sort of prior knowledge of any farming backgrounds or anything like that. And after 2 years, I was hooked. Like, I can't get enough of sort of farming. And then we implemented, it probably been 100 metres of natural sequence farming contour, just to sort of see the impact it would have on the land. And within 3-4 months, it was night and day difference. So from that small contour, we contoured the whole property. It just flourished, night and day difference. One of the principles of natural sequence farming is slowing the flow, so that's what we've done here. We are at the top of the range. There is a lot of destructive water that we can pass through, and slowing that water down is a great help. Like, if every farm implemented that sort of system on the way down, our water system would be crystal clear and would have a much healthier, happier earth.
I just think natural sequence farming is the beginning of what you do. And then from there, you just can build so much. And then when a major weather event that happened like we had,
our land isn't destroyed.
Yeah, once you get the hydrology right, and then you can build from there. Water and sun are your two sort of free elements and makes everything grow. So once they're ticked the box, you're good to go.
By supporting local farmers, watch what happens to not only the farmers in the area, the economy of the area, the health of the area. It all starts to change if we just do that one simple thing. And I like to be part of the solution and not part of the problem, and this is the way I do it. And you know what? When there's a disaster, local food will always be there, whereas imported foods or foods coming from afar, the trucks can't get through. But we've had plenty of food in our local co-ops and our local markets.
Forage Farms is an example of what production system could look like overlaid onto a natural sequence farm. And so I think it's really important that people can see that, okay, so you're going to get the landscape functioning. Let's say it's a landscape that's degraded. We've got the landscape functioning. How is it that we're going to earn any money off of that landscape in the short term? And so Forage Farms is a production system that generates income pretty much on day one, or at least in the first few months. And the production system overlaid at Forage Farms is helping build the landscape. So it's not taking from it, it's adding to it. So it's allowing it to build. I think it's a key component for everybody to be able to look at their particular operation and say, well, what parts of that could we add on to ours? This could be replicated everywhere. So anyone in any landscape could overlay the same model that we've created here onto their place. Doesn't matter how big or how small, it could be just on a portion of their place. It's the model that's important. And then you can move the model around your whole place. So that's massive.
I think for young people in the future, regenerative agriculture is really exciting, and it's really great to see that the next generation of farmers are my age and even younger, which I think is really exciting because for the last 40 years, most farmers you see are between the ages of 60 and 70, and unfortunately that's not the future. So seeing all these young people come through, it'd be really cool to see how the industry changes.
I'm Hamish Andrews and we're at Forage Farms at Gympie in the southeast Queensland. On the farm here we run pasture-raised chickens for eggs along with pigs and beef cattle. Forage Farms is modelled on a natural sequence farm. So we have our three areas of the landscape, an accumulation area, a production area and a filtration area, and we run our livestock enterprises within that. The main part of our system being Contours, located across those three areas with the role of managing water and fertility moving across our landscape and using the animals as tools to increase fertility and change the succession of plants that we have growing in our paddocks.
Well, here at Forage Farms, particularly with our chickens and the way we move them around, we had to develop our contours in a particular way where we couldn't really work with high banks because it made moving the chicken houses not possible. So we actually developed new types of contours with smaller banks that still manage the water but allowed us to be able to move the chicken trailers through. And over time those contours have started to slowly fill in as organic matter builds up, which is what they're naturally supposed to be doing, and managing the water so it's not going to be straight out into the Mary River. We're instead going to hold that in and it's going to be rehydrating our landscape.
At Forage Farms, I'd say, we're still going. We're only early in the piece, but our success has been good. Like, we have good review from customers on the quality of our product. We're building productivity for a farming system that's not the normal. And I think for other farmers, we hold the ability to share with them how we can do things differently. We're not just doing natural sequence farming here. We're both implementing the methods behind that, but stacking it with cover cropping, changing our grazing, managing for maximum green surface area all the time, and managing our water, and then whatever you do on top of that is up to you.
I think the most exciting thing about the future at Forage Farms is that we have now created a base for everyone to use, that now we're hoping to expand out and find people that also want to grow the way that we are, and we can work together and we can change the industry all across not just Queensland but all across Australia, so people are eating better produced and better tasting eggs, beef, lamb, chicken, everything like that. And I think that extra level of flavour which we believe is just coming from the way that we farm. That's what we try to achieve here. And that the animals are happy and they're healthy. And I think it's really good that we've been able to do that and show that it is possible.
We've been out travelling around and looking at the alumni of Tarwyn Park Training, people that have done the course over the years, and looking at the work that they've done. A lot of it they've done by themselves. Some people have had me come up to help read the landscape and maybe get them started. Others have just cracked in and had a go. We've been down to Tasmania, we've been back up into Queensland, out to Charleville, up into central Queensland, back down on the coast of Queensland. We've been down into New South Wales, travel around the central west. We've been up to Gloucester, near the coast. All these landscapes are different. None of them are the same. Yet they're all implementing exactly the same process. They're utilising contours, they're utilising ponds, if they were doing leaky weirs. All of them are doing the same thing. All of these people have been through our course and they understand that the patterns and processes are the same everywhere. It doesn't matter how much rain falls in that environment, doesn't matter what sort of plants grow, the processes are the same. And so what they are doing is resetting those processes, which is the really important part. And you know, their results have been pretty mind-blowing really, considering what they've been able to do. There's still a lot more work to do. But what I really love about that is that these people have realised that, one, this is not difficult, and two, they can do it themselves, and three, which is probably the most important part, it's not expensive to do. It's so simple that you only have to spend the money once and it gives forever. They've done a fantastic job. I see these people that we've been travelling around as our natural progression. What we need is we need other people out there that can educate farmers. So we might run, with Tarwyn Park Training, we run a course, but it doesn't end with the course. You need to have people out there that are closer to all the other farmers around them so that they can come to one another's property and look at the works that they've been doing and learn from what they've been doing. And so these guys are the champions to allow that to happen. So they might have people in on one-day field days so that people can come and have a look at the works, and the people who have done the works get to talk about it. These guys really are the champions of natural sequence farming, and they are the future. They will drive this forward, and we want more and more champions coming on board all the time to keep things growing. Next we're heading across the Bass Strait to Tasmania, to Ripple Farm at Richmond with Rachel Treasure and Daniel Laureau. They're setting up a demonstration farm to show how NSF can be implemented in a Tasmanian climate zone.
Hi, I'm Rachel Treasure and I'm at Ripple Farm in southern Tasmania. When we walked onto the property, it had been ploughed into oblivion, the water systems were broken. The soil would clog up with 1/2 mil of rain and you'd end up with platform shoes. The soil was annihilated and it's all black cracking clays. So that was the challenge, to bring that back from the industrial agricultural devastation, which was a huge challenge but so much fun. Yeah. I've watched Tasmania degrading over a very long period of time, and that's what's really driven me to implement this kind of mindset change and set up a natural sequence farming demonstration site in southern Tasmania so other people would see the magic. Ripple Farm's situated at the end of a larger catchment, so it's basically been drained. It's eroding, we were losing all the water. It's also a fertility drain. So what we've sought to do is to reinstate the original flow of the creek, which is this beautiful curving oxbow, and then filter the runoff through plants so that they purify the water, because if it flooded upstream, the floodplains down here would be covered in other people's manure, which would contain drenches and bringing disease to our stock and soil. The plant systems have been aided by some leaky weirs and stock crossings that Stuart has put in, And then we've repaired the entire top of the property with one beautiful contour that actually starts at one end, finishes at the other, but it curves around a hilltop that was denuded of topsoil. It had all blown out to sea. And now Stuart's put a little island and a tree there, and there's water up there and plants. So we're capturing all the runoff from the road, and it is pumping with life. This has been the key driver to that exponential growth in ecology and production and resilience. It's just been really special to see the water course rejuvenating itself. This property was so broken, and all of the grazing knowledge and plant knowledge and animal husbandry knowledge that I had, you could apply it around and around in circles, but we were never going to get anywhere until we repaired the land hydrology. And now that that's happened, you can just absolutely start to see the system fire and also feel the energy of the place.
My name's Daniel at Ripple Farm. The biggest thing for me is creating habitat. That's what rocks my boat. That's awesome, seeing an area that had nothing turning into a refuge. We're creating habitat. So that is really important to me, and it's awesome to see.
Tarwyn Park Training will put you on a totally different, not even a road, a totally different watercourse, and it'll take you down to this stream of potential abundance. And then the key is getting water to marry up with the plants for everything to feel better. Like, you absolutely feel so much better. So if you are looking after land, this is your next step.
Tarwyn Park Training is supporting the progression from landscape learners to landscape leaders through our training of natural sequence farming. First of all, we educate landscape learners, the people at our course. The people that want to go further, they can train more with us to become facilitators in the course. And then we've got our operators, people that want to go and build stuff on people's places. And then it could be a combination of the two are the mentors or the landscape leaders. So over time, we are building these people to be able to help those on the land wherever they need it. Because a lot of times you've got farmers that don't necessarily have machinery and don't necessarily operate machines. And so they need helping in the paddock, machinery operators, landscape breeders, or whatever. As we build capacity, we've got these people that we can say, oh, you want to talk to Stuart McWilliam, say, or you want to talk to Ben Sharp. And you put those people together and then they can make things work. That's how we grow.
The ground-up approach to regenerative farming or natural sequence farming or building resilience into the landscape is to work alongside the people, because I can teach people in a classroom, but the pearls are when you're working alongside someone, because you build a rapport with them and really work with them at that level. And I think that's the best approach that I've found that underpins everything for me.
My journey as a natural sequence farming practitioner started off with first understanding how does our landscape work. The next part would be how could I apply the learnings into practice so it actually works on farm within a farming system. And the third part of this would be how can I actually teach others about it.
We're moving from water drainage to a landscape rehydration system. I think that's the big thing. Water still goes out of the system, it goes out crystal clear over a long period of time, rather than whooshing out in a short period of time. More water goes into the country and will eventually make it to the streams.
For me, it's about feeding the human being. Satisfaction, job satisfaction, and being able to show it to other people. Because my accumulated knowledge over a lifetime in agriculture, it's so important to pass that on.
There is multiple ways to farm well and more profitably And natural sequence farming is one piece of the toolkit, and there's many, and we need to be really open-minded and keep all tools available so we can succeed more quickly.
There's no limitation. It wouldn't matter if it's the Pilbara with the water, big mass amount of water's running off there, or down in the Murray area, or just some of these lighter countries that we have up in the Northern Rivers area that get consistent rains, or ones that get seasonal monsoonal rains. They can all do with some assistance. So our boundaries of the Australian borders. But I would believe that it is an international issue, it's not an Australian issue, so these principles can be implemented across the whole of the world.
At the moment, we're spending our time focusing on working in Australia. But PA always talked about Australia being the laboratory for the world. So it's only a matter of time before we need to take this information to the world. So we need to be able to build teams that can be here in Australia, continuing the momentum here, and then we need teams that can then progress around the world to help others. And so that's our role, I think, going into the future, is to create enough teams that we can cover large areas, scale it.
We're trekking out to Rockley, New South Wales, to Amazona with Graham, Waging and Rob. These guys are implementing natural sequence farming onto their landscape at the head of the Murray-Darling. It affects every town downstream from Bathurst to Burke and beyond.
With NSF, we're investing in landscapes. We're investing in fertility and production, and to do this at scale, we'll see scalable benefits.
Can't control the weather. It's one thing that we can control is how we handle the rain that does fall. The rainfall seems to be feast or famine. So I think as land managers, we need to be utilising every bit of rainfall that falls. If you're 2 weeks later into a dry spell and 2 weeks earlier out of it, then that could be the difference between selling a mob of animals or keeping them. My name's Rob Scott. We share farm this property here at Amazona, just south of Bathurst, near Rockley. And share farm this property with some owners, Graham and Wei Shin. They own the land and we're running meat sheep and Angus cattle. I actually went and did a NSF course, went to Tarwyn Park Training, and then we've just decided that we'd like to implement it on the properties where we are here.
I'm Graham Brown, this is Wei Shin, my wife. We are on our property Amazona, and we've been today looking at earthworks we did 6 or 8 months ago. Well, when we arrived here, it was a pretty typical rural property really, that over many years it's been managed in a particular way, which at the time was thought to be the best practice. But the end result was erosion, gullies and creeks and so on, some of them quite severe. And so what we're trying to do is A, stop the erosion and hopefully help restore it.
The results we're seeing from what we've done already, we can see signs of staying greener for longer below those contour banks. And I think over time that will get better and better,
I'm Stuart McWilliam and I'm a first generation farmer. I did the Tarwyn Park Training course about 4 years ago, and from that, with a background in earth moving and arboriculture, I had a bit of a passion for it and I had a bit of a knack to it. So I started sort of following Stuart Andrews around, and from that I just gained a little bit more knowledge, and Stuart guided me in the direction for a couple of jobs, and one thing has led to another. Now, sort of 4 years down the track, we have a semi-trailer with our earth moving gear and a big caravan, and myself and my wife and 3 children travel around Australia doing natural sequence farming work full time. The vision here, we've got some lighter country higher up in the landscape here that's previously been ran pretty hard. So building a bit of biology and fertility further up in the landscape with some ringed contours on the tops of the hills. We've brought in some weather damaged straw and hay to sort of fast track the process there. And then we've incrementally worked our way down the landscape with some ponds, some contours, just starting to spread the water out over the landscape to get a bit more grass growing here to keep things moving along.
I'm John Fry from Bathurst. I've been doing this for 20 years with Peter Andrews as an NSF practitioner, and every day I see this growing. So if we start at the top of the catchment here at Amazona, we can see these benefits cascading down through the system, and there are a lot of properties going into the Macquarie River, which is the water supply for every city from Bathurst down to Dubbo and further on to Bourke. So by bringing more NSF certified landscape practitioners, rehydration experts into the system, we build capacity to do all this work in a pretty fast time. So it's an investment and we can value add.
Amazona is a great example of how we're building capacity to get people restoring landscapes throughout Australia. So Rob Scott did the Tarwyn Park Training course a number of years ago. He had this property which he considered needed some work. John Fry put in a plan for what could be done on the property, and then he contacted Stuart McWilliam, who has the skills for building, and those two constructed what needed to be done. So this is an example of how we are building capacity to restore more landscapes across Australia. This NSF road trip was never about us. It was always about hearing from our champions and looking at the diversity of landscapes and the diversity of work these guys have been implementing. And what I've really loved is seeing these guys following the patterns and processes that are written in the Australian landscape. And from here, anything is possible.
At our water station, we're changing the paradigm from the water drainage system to a landscape rehydration system. We started with a property that was a drainage system through large drainage banks. And so I've retrofitted the drainage system into chains of ponds so that they can retain the water and let it slowly filter into the landscape.
When we're working in steep country like this, first of all, contours are required basically, and we could probably put in some more, but we're just trying to see where they settle out with their fertility. I think that's the first thing, because if you can stop the rainwater rushing down those slopes, it's going to help the paddock to change the landscape for the betterment of the soil. And ultimately, we try and let nature take care of what's going on.
Growing up, we saw this place blow away more times than we'd care to remember, and we had too many stock and we damaged our landscape. And you know, they do say the thing, you have to have some pain to make the change. Yeah, so we're focusing on having healthy soils and healthy plants to have healthy animals, to have healthy humans. And if we can make a livelihood out of that with the least amount of inputs, then life's good. It's all about living life and enjoying the journey.
For this season being so dry, we've still been in a better position with the farming system that we have. And the natural sequence farming is building water holding capacity in organic matter in that top base where the plant zone is. To us, this means part of how rain ready we were, but now there's actually different systems that we can actually keep doing to even get more rehydration through the landscape. So it's always exciting to realise there's actual more potential.
It was 2 years for us between doing the Tarwyn Park Training course on natural sequence farming and actually implementing 15 kilometres of natural sequence farming contours here. And we understand that it will take quite some time for all of the benefits to accrue here, but we are seeing small benefits very quickly. So if I had one regret, it would be that I wish I would have done it sooner. So, you know, my suggestion to anyone doing a natural sequence farming course with Tarwyn Park Training would be to drive yourself to put what you learn into practice as quickly as you can afterwards.
There is no silver bullet when it comes to fixing land, but I mean, the first step is you've got to stop wrecking it. And natural sequence farming, I think, can play a huge role in speeding up the recovery of land. And you can kind of work with Mother Nature or against it, and if you work against it, you're only going to be wrong 100% of the time, you know, so you've got to try and get it functioning back the way it was, where it's happy and everything on it is, you know, all the animals, plants and people are happy, hopefully, so that's the goal, yeah.
It's not a lack of water in Australia, it's a lack of keeping the water that lands here. That's the biggest thing that I see. We see these very hard, fast rainfall events. There might be 50 to 100 mils in them over a short space of time, and the only place you actually see the effect of them is on your rainfall chart. The rest of it's down the creek. So I see this as storm catching, basically. If we can get that maybe 200 kilometres of contouring I'd like to get done here at Lorraine. We'll see what it can do, and I can't wait.
I think given where we are, it took us a little bit of time to recognise that this is a peri-urban landscape, and so we do have an opportunity to sit on the fringe and be accessible for the city folk to come and understand where their food does come from.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see some young kids coming out with no concept around farms and food and all those things. So it's nice to be able to help them in their journey as well, to go, well, there's more to life than Coles and Woolies solving our problems.
6 months ago, I would never have thought that I'd be driving an excavator, digging ponds and building contours. I'm a Sydney guy, knew nothing about farming. I'm doing it now. I've brought my excavator and doing my own work. So I would encourage anyone to give it a go, give it a crack, because if I can do it, anyone can do it.
We experience climate change through a hydrological imbalance. And Australia is a classic example of that. Drought, fire, and then flood. So, until we address that problem, everything else is irrelevant. Our biggest problem in Australia here, we've removed the vegetation, stopped the ability of the landscape to hydrate, and we've effectively set up drainage everywhere. And it's drained the landscape, dropped the water table, and as the soil gets drier and drier, it gets hotter, and that hot air rises, and the only place that can cool down is off the coast, close to a mountain range or high altitude. And guess what? When it does precipitate, we end up with a heavy storm. And this is what you see all throughout the world at the moment, is that you have long periods of dry, then it's followed by fire, and then finally we get storms and mudslides. It's a hydrological imbalance. So if we're going to rehydrate the landscape, we're going to have to look at how we're designing our farming systems. First, we need to reinstate the small water cycle through plants, nature's air conditioning and sprinkler system, where the sun's pure energy is converted into nutrients for the soil, oxygen and water vapour for the air, evapotranspiring to cool and water the landscape, which is how we restore healthy, productive farms. Then we have to look at the right reforestation projects to link these properties together on the contour, and to link this moisture together in order to create hydrological corridors. This is inspired by some brilliant work done by the scientist Anastasia Makariva and the Eastern European authors of A New Water Paradigm. They were the first to introduce the term the biotic pump, where you get vast movements of moisture going from the ocean all the way inland, helping to moderate the climate from paddock to planet. And together with all the other practices around the world, we can rehydrate Australia. Rehydrate the whole world for that matter.
What I believe is possible if we keep scaling up NSF, natural sequence farming, right across Australia, is we have the ability to change the way, one, our rain is effective when it hits the ground, and two, we have the potential to cool our landscape so that we moderate our rain events. We had a landscape 230 years ago that held all of its water in the landscape. The only water that ran off was the water that could no longer be recharged into the soil. Today, we've got a very much dehydrated landscape, and most of our landscape runs water off, and very little is actually taken into the soil. So we can rehydrate Australia by getting the water back in the soil where it can grow plants. Then we need to make sure that we've got the diversity of plants in there so that they can do the best job they can at cooling the climate. The more plants we get in there to cool the climate, the more we regulate our rain events. To go from a paradigm of water drainage to water storage is quite simple. It's just start to value the water that falls on our landscape. And we can do that by putting in contours, putting in ponds, growing more biodiversity. All of these components, getting soil that is softer and able to receive the rainfall when it comes. That's a paradigm of storing water where it's needed. Not going out and building massive big dams, because that doesn't necessarily create our productivity. Our productivity should start with water being stored in the soil, in the landscape, and only the runoff gets stored in big dams which might be used for people or whatever. So to take our landscape from a dehydrated one to a rehydrated one, first of all, we go out and we read the landscape. We look at the steps. The steps determine where we need to put in an intervention to slow down the speed of water. See, if we can slow down the speed of water, we give it the opportunity to go into the ground rather than run off. That's the first component that we need in there. The next component is we need the plants to come in. But a lot of the plants can't grow because there's no water. So we start by managing the water, we then get the plants, and before too long, very short period of time, probably a couple of years, we've now gone from a dehydrated landscape to a rehydrated landscape. So if we're slowing water, spreading nutrients, creating plant progression, we are then able to rehydrate Australia. Everything grows from that. It will be exponential. We just have to start the process. That's the really important part here. This landscape, built by itself, it just needs a little bit of help so it can redo it again. The last stop on our NSF road trip is catching up with regenerative legend Charlie Arnott at Hannamino, Boothulla, New South Wales. Charlie is leading the charge to rehydrate Australia. It makes a lot of sense that the driest continent on earth should be making a priority to rehydrate itself. You know, I can't imagine any land manager in Australia wouldn't want to be more attuned to the landscape and knowing how to rehydrate it. We're the ones that should be leading the way in understanding and sharing that. So having this knowledge and being able to apply it, I think is significant. And it's a practice and a method and principles that apply to every square inch of Australia. G'day, Charlie Arnott, 8th generational regenerative farmer here at Hannamino, Boothulla. I grew up here on our very conventional farm, and in the early 2000s when we had an extended dry period, we like to call them, when I was watching paddocks blow away in the wind and started to question, you know, was that a natural event? Was that of my doing? What could I do about it? And I decided at one point that no, it wasn't something I had to accept. What I really had to do, I felt very passionate about, is finding out how I could do a better job of managing the landscape. One of the wonderful things about natural sequence farming is that whilst we can graze our landscape as best we can, and we sort of time control graze or holistically manage our pasture, you're always going to be limited by how you use the rainfall. We can't influence a lot of the things. We can't influence markets, we can't influence the weather. But what we can change is how we have prepared the landscape for weather events. What we've done is a lot of work around our homestead, in the kilometres around where we are. You drive past every day, you can observe and see these changes in the landscape. You can see how water's flowing. You can see how this contouring technique is retaining moisture in the landscape and rehydrating the landscape. The paradigms we're talking about changing are large ones, and I always say that the first paddock you should change is the one between your ears. You know, that's where you hold your paradigms, and so it may take a number of steps, it may take some questions, and I think that's a really critical thing. You've got to go at your own speed, your own comfort, and that's again going to come back down to your budget, time frames, who's on board, and being really clear of your vision and what you actually want to get out of it. Australia is a vast continent, and again, nothing works without water. So it seems pretty clear to me that the farmers who are interested enough
to look at these sort of methods, care enough about nature and the environment, they're generally the ones producing the better food, the more nutrient-dense food, because they're in cleaner environments, they're more robust, they're more resilient, the animals are happier, and generally the people are happier too. So anyone who eats food, essentially, I think, needs to support this sort of methodology, and let's rehydrate Australia.
Oh, Jesus, you are a chubby one. Hey, don't bite. How you going?
All right.
And this is from Charlie Arnott said I needed to do that.
Good on you.
There you go, that's from Charlie.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, I find it. It's all got the best of me right now. And the way this season and the drying of Victoria to South Australia and so on, all was predictable. When we have a continent that managed by plants the best climate and the biggest genetic examples on the planet for millions of years, and we are too stupid with all the technology we got to be able to reinstate it. But the issue then was, this is the greatest opportunity for humanity ever, or I wouldn't even be attempting to do it. And it's been to the final stages here that the unique ways that this landscape was managed by plants is very complex, but simple enough if you get advice. The same as, motor industry, everyone gets advice from reliable people based on our ability to measure accurately how this landscape previously did what I just described, and that in fact there's two issues. Nothing ever took plants out, so that all plants were involved. Secondly, because it took 500 million years for the plants to get the management of water across an arid land, we have to be the water managers to get the plants to take over. That's the simple story, and hopefully I can show you all that, why and how, and they can measure the hell out of it if they want, but it doesn't worry me. The guarantee of what this old landscape is able to achieve, as you know, you've been all over it, but I'll go there and show them that what's here now measurable will be able to be reinstated everywhere. Mm-hmm. I've got some things here to show you as well. So it underpins all the work you've done and puts a foundation on all the modelling that you've got. And it's not going to be very difficult. Once you put the stuff together that you've done, this next phase will be run by plants.
The important part is not what I've done, it's what other people are doing. And that's what's more important. A big part of the message that we're attempting to deliver to people, that all tools are good. All of them should be part of your toolbox. But remember, the one tool that fixes here can damage over there. And so even what we're talking about, if it's not run by plants, if it's about building banks and things around the place, we can get it right one time and bugger it up the next time if we don't include the plants. And that's the message that we're putting out there, to realise that knowing how and where to use the tool, whichever tool at the right time, is what's critical. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong, and you'll see examples.
Well, if we had some problems in the beginning, it was because I hadn't recognised, and you didn't seem to be able to say that, but I'm pleased. You've come a long way.
There you go. We're at PA's property just outside Bungonia in New South Wales. We've come to have a look at what PA's been doing here over the last 10 years really, and have a chat with him about that, and also what we've been up to whilst being on the road.
One of the biggest things with the Australian landscape was that it recycled all daily production, or 90% of daily production. And it managed water in the most effective possible way. In other words, it was able to store it evaporation free under the grass. and it was able to move the water through the roots of plants, carrying fertility at the same time. So we'll go to where, if the fertility is not at the high point, that can't happen. Always start at the top. You've got to have fertility at the high point, and because we've destroyed the water management system in the country, you need water. So I could pump enough water, and because it was the most efficient possible way, it will produce maximum growth for probably between 5 and 15% of the water we're using today. So what happened is there was a truckload of turkey manure put here, and last year couldn't walk through it for fat hen. You'll see the odd plant. The horses will graze this out about 6 times and still growing grass. But then you stand here and you realise that that end of Woodward's Creek is still a total disaster. From here to there, this built, and I deliberately didn't do anything on that side because the flow is that way. I've built this side so I could show what this will do to the creek, yes. And that's, you can't buy time, but that is a few years worth of time. And that's where everyone needs to get it, when they realise that without these beginnings and the sort of simple management, when we go from here, I'll show you how we can change it by years, months, even days.
This here is just a repeating process, so you can repeat this as many times. So
yeah, but you see, this one will help that one, and
yeah,
so
of course.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, but then once they all join together, then they're a force. You're not waiting for this to have to work all the way down to the creek, which takes time. If you break it up with this repeated there, and then repeated again and again.
What surprised me, and I have to say, that this actually affected the creek without me having to do anything. I did cause the erosion to stop wandering through, but then the plants from here worked right to the creek and rebuilt the creek, which you'll see, of course. But this is the next issue. Between here and there is a flow system that takes all of the productivity of this area down to that point, so that we can't allow our fertility to go to the sea. And so this small unit shows that everybody could do it, set it up. And the principle is plants do the work, we just got to set it up so it can happen.
Sounds like I don't know, almost sounds like a record.
Well, I used to talk to you about it a lot, but you didn't understand quite as much as I do now, and you did then, or didn't do then.
I don't think I understood anything then. That was part of the problem.
It was a problem. I admit it's a problem, and it's been my...
Which gives me a better position, because I know what it's like to be on both sides of it. So now I can be on both sides of the coin, the person that's able to deliver the message, and I can also be the person trying to understand the message with a low level of understanding. And so therefore, it enables the message that I deliver to be in a way that the person can understand easier.
Well, I've got to say now, right now, I believe everything you've just said, but when we were starting, I didn't think you'd get there. But obviously, I congratulate you, you are there.
So we've been out with PA and we've had a look at the property and what work he's been doing over the last 10 years. And as per expected, we started at the top and we worked our way right around, a full loop around the place to have a look to see how things are functioning. Now, we started with where he put the nutrient at the top of the hill first and how the landscape was building from that point. He's added a few other small contours on the way down to the creek system, but what was quite remarkable is that the small amount of work that was done up the top allowed the creek at the bottom to start rehabilitating pretty much by itself. There was a vehicle crossing in the bottom of the creek as well, and he's just made it function better. But now he's got vegetation growing on the edges of the bank and down in the base, which was not there before when I came here 10 years ago. It was quite a barren, hard, ordinary landscape. And so then we tracked the contours around
to where he has his wetland system. And his wetland system's there designed to capture his losses, filter the water before it leaves the property. And he's put in a series of contour steps to allow for that filtration and the recharge-discharge function, or the positive and negative charge that allows for different plant growth in different areas. And so that's been really good to see. And you know, the plethora of different things that PA's done in such a small landscape is quite amazing. And you know, the results are, well, it's exactly what I would anticipate and what he would anticipate, but it's great for other people to be able to see that you're able to complete this on a small landscape or on a larger landscape. So it's been really good to go out and see his results.
My one words that we're told, if it's not a good news message that affects everybody beneficially, probably won't happen. But this will do that. So you've been travelling around all of the people's properties that you've been teaching this information to. So how's that gone?
It's been an eye-opener. We've been travelling around looking at the properties that people have done our course, and once they've gone back to their properties, they've been out, they've read the landscape, and then they've put into plan what they thought was going to get their landscape functioning. They're only at the beginning of their journey, but they're starting the process. And that's the most important part, because starting the process, if you don't start, it's never going anywhere. But we've travelled all the way from central Queensland into Western Queensland, onto the coast of Queensland, down into New South Wales, central New South Wales, over onto the coast of New South Wales and southern New South Wales, into Victoria, central Victoria, on the coast. And I remember growing up and hearing people say to you, oh yeah, but it works there at Bylong, but it doesn't work anywhere else. So it's always been my plan to show that that's bullshit.
No, it is bullshit, but the thing is, this is the other issue. What you can do at one cycle of weather can be 180 degrees different in the next cycle of weather. So that's the piece that I want, because everyone thinks it all should stay the same when they get it right. Our landscape is changing, as the scientists taught me, by the nanosecond. So you can't write a description today to last for tomorrow even. And so once they understand that this is a changing process, the plants have got millions of processes they have to conduct. Why do we need to bother if we put the plants there and help them do that job? And that's what's the same. The plants are always there. The water should be there. If it's not, we've got to put it there. And then, as you've just described, most of the other things are consistently able to be operated. You know, the sun shines, the wind blows, all these other things happen. And they actually build the soil in a way that suits their particular requirement at the time. So that's what makes it much easier. I mean, when we try to make all these soil measurements and soil testing and all that, it's a guide only. The biggest and most profitable part, as you just mentioned, is them looking at it and saying, I'm going to make an effort to get this to happen. I'm going to. But not by manipulating it, by poisoning anything, by upsetting the plants, just by using the simplest things that have been operating since time immemorial.
You know, that's something that was really key that you used to tell me in the early days, and I just thought you were being difficult, like normal.
Oh, I'm always difficult.
Yeah, no, I know. But I thought it was you being difficult. But you think about how many areas in the world used to be food bowls, and they were managed by man and are now deserts.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
This landscape, this is what you tried to get across, this landscape has been able to resist
all changes. So these principles, I believe we should reference, because I don't believe we can invent anything. Fortunately, this landscape's done it all for us. And in the case of humanity, if you go back through 10,000 years maybe of humans, they've all failed. But we have this landscape for the same period and that 4 times longer, absolutely ran at the highest level of production. So why wouldn't you look at that as a blueprint that we've now got to understand it and get people to understand how to manage it?
I think the most important part that you have done and I am endeavouring to do, is to empower people with the information. That's the best thing we can possibly do.
I wish you were right. I hope you're right. I
know I'm right. I know I'm right.
That's good.
I am fully trusting that if we can give people the information, we then need to be able to just assist them and support them in getting their landscapes to function and get out of the way and allow it to do what it needs to do. In other words, put the right plants in the right place at the right time. What we're talking about is a tool, and so long as the tool is used correctly, it will work really well. But if you're not careful, you could use the same tool to cause harm. And so making sure we always make sure that we build it for any event.
Yeah, it is more than ready to happen. But how could people, all running different things, make a proper decision based on the landscape unless an advisory service like you have for each model car, and you pick it up and I've got this model, you can say I'm in Burke or I'm in Perth or I'm in Brisbane or whatever, and I've got this and this. And we've got somebody officially doing what should be done. And I can guarantee you this, no one will compete with Australia's quality products, no one.
I think it's hugely inspiring to see what opportunities this landscape offers and how everyone can be involved. Like, we've been around looking predominantly at people that are on farming landscapes, but this doesn't finish with people just on farming landscapes. This is for everybody. People in their own backyard can do exactly the same thing as the people out on 170,000 acres at Charleville. All of the principles, all of the patterns are the same. So it can be repeated everywhere. And for those people who may live in an apartment and they don't have an area, well, they can be thoughtful as to where and how they buy their food. How is the food that they buy produced? Is it produced on a landscape where people are utilising these natural patterns and processes in the landscape to produce the food? You can do that. Just those dollars, if you spend those dollars supporting the people that are looking after their landscape that way, well, guess what? More people will want to do the same thing. Because at the end of the day, I think we have something like 170,000 farms in Australia, but we've got 26 million people. Therefore, the people, the eaters of Australia, they have a choice to make. So together, we can rehydrate Australia. Let's make it happen
immediately. Okay? You know, I've had it, I'm sick of it, I'm finished, and I really have got the experience to help people, but the frustration of time immemorial, and I actually, I want out. I'll only be available for
the rest of
answering
the day.
Questions. Yeah, I'm not even the rest of the day. I would like to just sort of wander off into the sunset, because it's about just to happen, you see.
I think the world can learn from what we are seeing and what we are doing in Australia, that this is possible anywhere. So landscape rehydration, if you can do it in arid parts of Australia, you can do it in arid parts anywhere around the world. Anything is possible. All you have to do is start. Start the process and allow nature to build. So just start.
The most important thing is for everybody, including I do it as much as I can. You put your hand up and said, unfortunately, I've overlooked the obvious. And it's cost me a fortune in the time. It's cost me my life, actually, but you're here to save it, hopefully. So we'll see.
I'm really grateful for all of the cooperation from people around our travels. All of these people have taken time out to welcome us to their properties, show us around, and it's a huge amount of gratitude from me to them. Big thank you to everyone.